Hi, this is Shanker, and I'm today making a video. Today is the first day of Navratri also, so happy Navratri to all, and may Goddess Durga bless everybody with a lot of wealth, health, and prosperity. So today I'm going to talk about this random video, and I'll talk about 6th, 8th, and 12th house, and the importance of 6th, 8th, and 12th house. What are the positives of the houses? And what how you should analyze these houses. These are all dreaded houses, and generally people say that planets in sixth are going to vanquish, planet in eighth are going to create problems, and planets in 12th, again, it's like all about destruction. These three houses are akin to destruction, negativity, etc., etc. But let's understand these three houses in the right perspective. So, what is the sixth house? The sixth house deals with enemies, diseases, and deaths. These are three things which it deals with: enemies, diseases, and deaths. Now, the importance of sixth house is that if it deals with enemies, diseases, and deaths, it is an house which actually gives you the power to take care of these three things. It is also known as the house of competition. And why it is known as the house of competition, or it's generally said it's house of competition. If sixth house is strong, a person will be able to compete, he'll be able to rise. But what is the reason for that? The reason is that to handle enemies, to handle diseases, and to handle debts, you need to have the spirit to get over them, the spirit to compete, the spirit to आप उनके साथ आपको जूझने की शक्ति होना चाहिए. अगर आपके डिजीज है तो इट इज एब्सोल्युटली इम्पोर्टेंट दैट यू शुड हैव अ गुड इम्यून सिस्टम to take care of your disease. If you take a debt, you should be able to repay it. And if you have enemies, आपको उसको लड़ने की शक्ति, you have to be able to fight it. So it is the house of competition. It is the house which gives you the strength to fight these three things. And it is only when you have a strong sixth house you will be able to fight enemies, diseases, and debts. So I have never been able to understand how this house is, a house which can create negativity, a house which gives you the power to fight these three things, cannot be a house which can create negativity. So that is one thing which you should understand, and it is critical. Now, what happens is that let us understand how you analyze this house. In the Kalpurush, the sixth house is ruled by Mercury. So whenever you are analyzing the sixth house of any horoscope, please put the energy of Mercury. See how the Mercury is placed in your horoscope. That will have a lot of impact on your sixth house, because Mercury is the planet of intelligence. It is able to decipher, able for you to act, for you to communicate, to handle these issues. So Mercury in Virgo is very different from Mercury in Gemini. Mercury in Virgo, the sign Virgo is a fixed sign. It's a solid sign. It is a sign which focuses. It is a sign which tells you, now, I have to do something for myself. Therefore, it is an important sign. So whenever you are looking at a sixth house, suppose you have Kark Lagna. So Kark Lagna, the owner of sixth house will be Sagittarius. The sixth house will fall into Sagittarius. So you have to see the planets in sixth house. That is very important. You have to see Jupiter where it is placed, but you have to also see how Mercury is placed in the horoscope. When we're talking, you should always, when you're looking at sixth house of your horoscope, always look at the 6-12 axis, the sign of Virgo and the sign of Pisces, irrespective of your ascendant or the Chandra line, whichever is stronger and whichever way you do. Now, that's a predictive aspect of it. So always when you look at sixth house, look at Mercury. Put the impact of Mercury, because that is got a great vibration there in your sixth house. Then see the Lord, like I was taking about Karkalan. Look at the Lord, that is Jupiter, how it is, and then you analyze the aspect. A very important thing also is see which is the Karak, which is the Kartat of sixth house, which is the Kartatva, Lord of sixth house, which is Mars. So always look at Mars there, how Mars is placed in a horoscope. And then you have to analyze your sixth house. The sixth house, therefore, is a house of competition. It's a house which does not, is not akin to business, because, again, you go back to the Kalpurush, this thing, the sixth house is the sign of Virgo. And Virgo is a sign which is a fixed sign, which believes in work which is done in a dedicated, in a focused manner, slow, steady, where you think more about yourself. You are more contented with self. You want to do things yourself. You want to go ahead slowly and slowly. So that, therefore, it is also known a house of service. It is a house of service, and it is a house of competition. So sixth house, which talks about your service, which talks about a competition, which talks about dealing with debts, because even in business, if you have to become a good businessman, you should know how to, how to be able to take debts, and then how to repay debts. If you don't have the capacity to repay debts, or you don't have the ability, that is the mercurial ability, to pay back debts, it's going to be a problem. So sixth house is a very important house, not only for service, but also for businessmen, when you see whether he'll be able to generate money, take money from the bank, and able to repay it. So therefore, sixth house, a house which is dealing with service, which is dealing with competition, which is dealing with debts, the ability to take money in the present world, and it also dealing with your health issues, cannot be a negative house. Yes, it is said that 12th, it's astrological principle, that the 12th from any house negates the house which is there. So when we talk about 7th house, it will not negate the life, it will not negate the non-life principle of 7th house, because the 7th house is for business, assuming, so partnership. And 6th house is for competition, and it's for able to, it's your strength to generate money and to give money back. The strength to generate debt from the bank and then repay the money back. So as far as business is concerned, the 7th and 6th go hand to hand when you're talking about partnership, you're talking about business. But when you're talking about marriage, or the marital life, or your relationship with your wife, it is not actually that if a planet or Lord of 7 gets placed in 6th, it means negation of marriage. Then the person, whole ability of that person is to have is to have a mercurial approach towards marriage, towards your spouse. You are looking for things which I have just explained to you, also in terms when with your wife. So it creates a kind of a disconnect. It creates a kind of a आदमी थोड़ा सा दूर महसूस करता है. And so that is what happens. It is not that it negates marriage. So but yes, it is not good for marriage. So let's understand 6th house in this way. So 6th house, just to conclude, is a good house. It's a very important house for it is a house which talks about enemies, diseases, and debts. It is a very important house for business people, because you cannot do business if you don't take loan in the present world. It is a very important house for service people, because you cannot become a high ranking officer if you are, or a high ranking executive, if you don't have the ability to compete. The competition की जो भावना होती है वो नहीं होगी. You cannot rise. So therefore, please understand 6th house in these aspects. Yes, if the Lord of the 6th house is weak, if Mercury is weak, if the 6th house in your Kalpurush, you look at 6th Virgo in your, in your chart, if that has got too many malefic planets, and if Mars is weak, then you have to consider all these things together, and then come to an analysis of it. You have to see the planets which are there in 6th house, how are they, what is the strength of those planets, and then come to an assessment of 6th house. But that is an astrological assessment. But this whole myth that the 6th house is a bad house is not correct. Now let us come to the second important house, which is always misconstrued and said to be the most negative house, is the 8th house. Now what does the 8th house? 8th house stands for longevity. Now it does not talk about death. 8th house is always misconstrued as if it is a house for death. It is not a house of death. It is a house of your life. What is going to be a longevity? Death is more there, which can be seen from the second house, the seventh house, and the third house. These are important houses, but that is a different aspect altogether. Why second house, why seventh house, and why the third house? So that is a different aspect altogether, which I cannot go in this video. Here I am trying to explain you as to what the eighth house is all about. Now, eighth house is the most important house today. For a businessman, eighth house is all about structuring deals. How? Because what you're talking is about the second and eighth axis, the second house and eighth house axis. Please also remember, and this is a very important tip, that the house which is opposite to a particular house is the Lakshmi house of that horoscope. If you have the second house, which if suppose is the Vishnu, then the energy of the second house is 8. It's the second and 8 together which actually will give you an impact by which you should make prediction. But this is again a very deep thing, but it is always the axis which is important. The second and 8th house are absolutely critical houses. For second house is more for money which you earn, money which you get, money which is there with family, and 8th house is basically about how you get finances from various funds, or you go for an IPO, you go for shares, how you structure deals, how you take money, how you reinvest money, how do you pay, pay off one loan to take another loan at a lower price. That is all 8th house all about. So if 8th house is all about these things, how can it be a negative house? For businessmen, it is the most important house for big businessmen. For financiers and those who are in the world of finance, in the world of financial management, who are CFOs or who are dealing with the accountancy or structuring deals, without a strong 8th house, you cannot deal with it. Now, in the Kalpurush, the 8th house is, of course, ruled by Scorpio. Scorpio itself is a sign which talks about things which are under the earth. It talks about research. It talks about an energy which is internalized, which can be internalized and then generated outside. I mean, it talks something which is deep, which is about discovery, which is about going below. So that is what is the sign Scorpio in the Kalpurush 8th house is all about. So therefore, the second most important thing for any discovery, for any invention, for any deep scientific knowledge which is required, for anything which is under the earth, or anything which is which is dealing with iron, steel, the waves coming out of those elements from those minerals, that is all dealt by 8th house. So that's absolutely important in today's present age. I mean, you can imagine all this, all the tube trains and anything which is going through the rock, the way we are using the earth, to make tunnels into it, and the way we are exploiting the geology. I mean, geology is extremely important. So anything to do with geology is all dealt with 8th house. So, therefore, I mean, it's absolutely critical. 8th house also deals with surgery. 8th house also, a good surgeon, a very good surgeon can only become a very good surgeon if it has a strong 8th house, a relationship of the Lord of the 8th house. Therefore, surgery becomes very critical for 8th house. Anything to do with inheritance is all about 8th house, because the money which you get, which has been left behind by your forefathers or by your parents, that is all dealt by 8th house. Because in a way, you get something which is unexpected. That is all dealt by the 8th house. The 8th house also deals with a very, very important aspect of understanding the basic causes of, the basic issues of medical sciences, which we call as stem cell technology, the things which are the DNA study, the study of genomes, that is all related to the eighth house. Therefore, eighth house is absolutely critical, and without a strong eighth house today in the present world and in the present context, I mean, you cannot be where you want to reach. Yes, eighth house is the 12th house to the ninth house, so it delays things for you. It may delay things for you. You will get success after some delay and some frustration. Also, the eighth house is something to do with anything which is behind you, anything which cannot be seen. It is also the eighth house, or Scorpio is also has got the lordship of Ketu with it. So it has to do everything with photography, anything to do with film industry, anything where you have to do, you need to have a good voice, because it is opposite to the second house, a different voice, like the voice of Amitabh Bachchan. He could not qualify into an all India radio, but today his voice is supposed to be the VOA voice. I mean, it is different, but it has got a husk, it has got a gruff, and it's loved by people. So a different voice, so something which is different from what is there, from what are the issues which are related to second house. Second house also relates to voice. So a different voice, a different way of dealing with money, a different way of handling your finances, a different way of dealing with your family, which could be could be a little unconventional. I mean, people with eighth house also deals with unconventional way of dealing with family, which is not a positive part of the eighth house. So this is what eighth house is all about. The thing which is negative about the eighth house is because it deals with things which I have told you positively, fear and anxiety are also things which cannot be seen. The things which are in your subconscious, your phobias, your fears, just as the material things I have explained to you, these are also things which are governed by eighth house. So you have to see what the eighth house brings for a person, and then predict about the eighth house. It is a very, very important house. Eighth house, of course, also deals with accident, just as it deals with surgery, and it deals with things which I've also told you. It also deals with accident, fall from high places. So those are things which are also dealt by eighth house. But then you have to understand that there is a balance sheet. If I've told you the positive things, there would be a thing which is negative to that. So those are the negative aspects of eighth house, but that applies for each and every house. It is not a peculiar thing for the eighth house. So it is for you to decipher, what does the eighth house of particular person promises. When you're looking at eighth house, I want you, like suppose again, if you have Cancer ascendant, or you're a Cancerian, your moon sign is stronger than your ascendant, so whichever sign you take, I mean, if Cancer is your ascendant, assuming, then it is Aquarius which becomes your eighth house. Eighth house is has got the energy of Mars, which I explained to you, but not the Aries energy of Mars. It has got the Scorpio energy of Mars. So see Mars in the horoscope from that angle. Okay, it has the energy of Mars there. Not that you apply the you see the Mars of your natal horoscope and apply there in the eighth house. No. You have to see the energy, that Scorpion energy of Mars is there. So do look at the eighth. Suppose you have in Cancer ascendant, you have Aquarius as a sign. See the Scorpion sign also, which happens to be the fifth house in case of Cancer. Just see the sign. Which are the planets in that sign, how it is being impacted. So that energy will be in that eighth house also. You should also see at both, one is Mars, which I explained to you. The Kartattva of the planet is Saturn, so you should see Saturn there. And plus the planets which are placed in the eighth house. What is the strength of those planets, and how well are they placed? That is to be seen. And that again, if you have 2 or 3 planets, how you analyze the 3 planets, what are the degrees of the planets, how are they moving? I mean, that is the predictive aspect of it. So, but 8th house, understand this, not to be dreaded. Now let's come to 12th house. What does 12th house signify? It is the 12th from your Lagnesh. So, it is said to be that, your energy level may not be very high. You could be in an imaginative state of mind. That is, which we generally say, because it is the 12th from. But that again applies for every house of the horoscope. Every house is 12 to some house, every house is 6 to some house, and every house is 8 to some house. So that doesn't mean that, that house will not have the negative energies. Now, I mean, so don't take that into consideration. That is what people mistake. 12th house, again, is a house for foreign. Today, everybody wants to go abroad. If you have to go abroad, you have to have a relationship with the 12th house. 12th house is extremely important for taking you away from your native place. If you have to prosper away from your native place, olden times they used to say kala pani hai, so it is not good. Anybody who's to leave his country used to say, oh, it's a big thing, he's going, there'll be no communication, we'll not be able to talk. And it was a dreaded thing. So 12th house was, made into a house of dread. Even 8th house is a house, remember, it is 12 to 9th, is a house. I consider always 8th house as a house of travels, and travel by sea. Those who are in merchant navy, those who are traveling by ocean, those who are doing a lot of sea journeys or in the navy, 8th house becomes very important. 8th house is also something to take you Sa Samudra Par, reason being 12th to 9th house, which I can explain in a different video. So 12th house is about foreign countries. 12th house is also house of your spirituality. Now, 12th house, if you look in your Kalpurush, it is governed by Jupiter. So Jupiter is a teacher, it's a preacher, it's about knowledge. So 12th house, if it has got the energy of always 12th house, look at the energy of Jupiter, and that also the energy of pieces. 12th house will also have a relationship with your house opposite, which is the 6th house, because axis is very important. The 2 houses together actually become the Vishnu Lakshmi. They are the positive and negative forces which combine to give you a result. Never forget that. And that is the way, even when you look at it in nakshatra, you have one nakshatra, then you have to always look at the nakshatra which is opposite to the nakshatra in terms of degrees, and combine the 2 nakshatras to give the actual result. Like if you have Adra as your nakshatra, the nakshatra opposite to Adra would be Mula. So Adra and Mul together would actually give an impact. Adra is in Gemini and Mul is in Sagittarius. So Adra and Mul together, if you have 2 planets, one in Adra and another in Mul, those will give their impact. And both Adra and Mul nakshatra, they are nothing but about they have got transformational energies. They are also, as deviating from the point, these 2 nakshatras are said to be very, very, negative nakshatras. But no, in today's scheme of things, if you have Adra nakshatra, it is disruptive. It causes disruption. Mool is about energy which makes, which creates. So if there is disruption and you have creation, then there will be transformation. And these 2 nakshatra actually make the scientists, the politicians, the millionaires, the billionaires, the thought leaders of today. So let's understand things in the right perspective in the present context. Therefore, 12th house is a house which makes you to understand philosophy, makes you to understand knowledge. And when you have philosophy and knowledge, you tend to contemplate, you tend to be away from things. So anything which has to do with today, if a person does exercise, does meditation, is in silence, then I could say that out of 6 things by which a person becomes successful, he is doing at least 3 things. So if you do these 3 things which are governed by 12th house, a good 12th house will make you to do these 3 things. And if you do these three things on a regular basis and a positive and an intense basis, you are bound to be more successful. So that is how you have to see the 12th house. The 12th house also governs investment. So if the 6th house is talking about debts, the 12th house talks about investments. So if you have a good 6th house where you can actually generate money through taking loans, or you know by making deals by which you can take money from the public through IPOs or through shares, and then you invest it. But if you don't have a good 12th house, you will not be able to invest that money properly. The return on investment, the investment is seen from the 12th house. So if you are going to earn and you don't have a good 12th house, the investments would be a problem. So that is how you have to see. I mean, you have to look at the 12th house in terms of you making investment. That is the most important house. It makes you to do investments. Therefore, let us understand now the negative aspects of these things are that if you are not doing exercise properly, you are not meditating, you don't have the right energies to think, to contemplate, then it is a negative part of it is, you get these things through drugs, you get these things through different other addictions. So that's how 12th house works. That is the negative aspect of this. If this is the positive, this is the credit, this is the debit. But the debit will not, the only thing is, one should understand the 12th house doesn't have the debit part of it. It also has the credit part of it. So you have to see 12, you cannot just say, oh, 12th house is bad, it's negative. No, you have to see both the things. Does it have the negative energies or does it have the positive energies? If it has the positive energies, then you are a good thinker, you are exercising, you are contemplating, you are walking, you're doing the good things which makes your mind fresher. If the Lord is afflicted, then perhaps you're doing things which are not appropriate. 12th house is also house of the pleasure of bed. Why it is house of pleasure of bed? Again, let's understand. One is 12th house can take you to a contemplation of the highest form. If the right planets are there, it can take you to the highest form where you understand yourself, because you can only understand when you negate yourself. I mean, negating one by one, you understand yourself. So that is 12th house. It is also the house of sex, sex or the pleasure of bed, because when you are having sex or when you are in the act of enjoying sex, there is a moment where you lose your consciousness. It's a very temporary moment, but it is there. So you have to see how your 12th house is and what is the impact. Then only you can see whether it is a pleasure of bed or whether it is, you're going towards a samadhi. So that is how you have to see 12th house even in that context. So these are the aspects of 12th house. There are many more aspects of 12th house which are there, which I will not get into details. But again, 12th house is an extremely important house for three things. One is for investment, second is for your positive energies, and third is for investment, and third is for your whole mental outlook towards life. Again, if 12th house is not right, then you can get into addiction of drugs, you can get into sex of a wrong manner, you can land yourself into, by doing the wrong investments or by doing other things, land yourself into a jail. That is also a kind of being cut off from society. One is a person gets up in the morning and for 30 minutes sits and meditates and is in silence. It is positive. But if it is again negative, you can that silence is forced upon you through a monastery, through being with the mentally retarded people, or being in the jail. So you have to understand 12th house not by the people make you fear of the 12th house. So you have to see what are the positives of the 12th house. If the planets are good, if the Lord is good, then that 12th house will give you good results. It is not that 12th house is always going to be bad, and people talk about. Also it is very important that in astrology, two negatives will also make positive sometimes. But that is again, a different aspect of astrology, and you cannot pick up one thing. What happens if you see videos, you see one thing, Viprit Rajyog, somebody tells you something. That is not how it has to be done. Astrology has to be done in a kind of a balance sheet where you have to make a matrix. That matrix and the balance sheet has to work within your mind, and then intuitively by experience you come to a result. That is how astrology needs to be done. So these are houses which have very, very powerful positive things. on the credit side. Obviously, the opposite, the debit side is also so. Therefore, you have to analyze the planets very closely. The energy which is there in the 12th house is that of Jupiter, because in the Kalpurush, it is Jupiter which governs. It has the energy of Jupiter. It will also have the energy of Saturn. Now, I'm all the time talking about Kark Lagna or Cancer. So 12th house is ruled by Mercury. So you will have Mercury, so Jupiter, Saturn and Mercury, they play a role. Then you have planets within the 12th house, they would play a role. You have to see again in your horoscope, whether I've been able to explain or not, you should always see the 12th house, that is the pieces, just the pieces house. What is it afflicted or not? If it is afflicted or good, that energy just transplant in there. And then come to a particular conclusion. Of course, you have to see the strength of the planets, which is the Dasha, Bhakti, and a number of things like that. But the idea of this video was to tell you the houses of 6th, 8th and 12th in the right perspective. They are the houses which make you a winner, which make you to think out of the box, unconventional, and which make you to put your investments at the right place, both personally as well as non-personally. I mean non-personally, I mean materially. So please do not negate these houses, but you have to see and analyze these houses very nicely and very properly before you come to a conclusion. Thanks and bye for now. I hope you liked the video. You can contact me on my email ID connectingminds@gmail.com, on my site also. I do not have the best of the electronic gadgets to so you could have the voice breaking or voice not at the right pitch, etc. Please bear with me. And I make these horoscopes, I make these videos the love of the science, and I've been doing it the last 30 years, basically specializing on the Nadi system. In fact, I've been doing astrology since childhood. So that's it's not a profession for me, it's a passion for me, and I hope you like these videos. You can always connect with me. If I have the time, I'll be able to reply. Thanks and bye for now.